We're back to beautiful sunny weather. Great for boating and such. Itch my arm, sorry. And what I wanted to show you after a little bit of project here, I'll turn around. I just shoveled the excess charcoal and ash and whatnot out of my fire pit here. It has less wind exposure when it's deep like that, and so fewer bits of burning whatnot are at risk of blowing away while still on fire. So I do this periodically when it starts to get full. But I'm going to step down into the fire pit here and show you what I realized that some people won't know about, and that is, well, let me move my shadow. That is clay shale. Sure looks like clay, straight up, doesn't it? But when you actually dig it up, it's layers of rock and clay. See the clay color getting on my hands there. Together. And there are some places in Pennsylvania where there's a ton of this. And it's kind of interspersed in this fire pit. If I go down a little bit further right here, there you go. It gets, a little bright, a little bit orange. Yeah. So, while there's some areas in my yard, I was crouching and my knees are angry, like right up here, where I can get down several feet without much trouble. And I've done so with a post hole digger and brought up some really fine, soft quality clay right there. There are other areas in my yard where if I get down about 1.5 feet, it is immediately rock, layered rock. Rock that's not going to respond well to a post hole digger, even though it's interspersed with clay. So, I do find that really interesting, for sure, how it's some areas and not others. For example, over here it's a lot more clay, and we didn't even go very far. Let's get down into the shadow so you can actually see. Can you see where it goes from brown to orange? That's topsoil with a pure clay substrate. Easy to just put a shovel in and have it come right up. Whereas over here, if I go down that far, I kind of need a pickaxe at a certain point. I do think that historically, house sites were chosen based on this because you needed to at least get the outline in to get between the layers of shale to pry them off. Shale's very layered. And it would have been pretty difficult to get down through that many layers of clay shale. So, and my house is hand-dug foundation 1903. So it's definitely impacted by this. I impulse bought some peppers and tomatoes yesterday. Unfortunately, these dried out a little faster than I thought they would, so the tomatoes are in here rehydrating, hopefully, and hopefully they'll be fine. We'll see. And the milkweed flowers smell amazing. I can't get over it. This is the first year that I've had common milkweed in my garden, flowering. Like, I had it a couple years, but it doesn't flower the first year, apparently. But I see a lot fewer monarchs already. Because I don't think it got to the point of flowering last year, and part of that was just because it got so eaten up. But oh, do these smell good. And then over here, I've discovered that rhubarb leaves are a good smell suppressant in the compost. So I've been putting those on top. Not quite any lilies. Starting to get more frequent raspberries. Here's some. I didn't get over here yet. Well, that's not quite ready. These are ready for layering. We should do that. And then right up in here, there's another almost ready. And there's one down in there that's kind of ready. It smells like all kinds of things over here. And this milkweed's starting to bud up, too. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing the monarchs again this year, because there were a ton last year. They were very happy. But since this is so spreading, I'm also going to be using some of the milkweed sprouts as food, because they can be used as food when they're young. So next year, that'll be one of the asparagus options here. Asparagus options include, on my property, actual asparagus, hops, sprouts. They're wild hops, but they're escaped from the hop growing field historically that was up the way. And so they're a historic type. And they're also now the milkweed. So, and then I can start to harvest the little seed pods. I think I mentioned, harvest the flowers for food, or these buds like broccoli for food, which I might try. Oh, hi, milkweed beetle. That's a native bug, too. I was thinking about how my garden would look differently if it weren't permaculture, and I can't even really imagine it. But I do know that skipping a day means I actually get flowers and look like a normal person about my flowers for a second. But there were long-term effects of skipping a day, it turns out, that came from the Saskatoon here. Once the birds get a taste, they decimate this plant, but they leave the half-dead little berries on there. And that happens here specifically. If I stay really ahead of the birds and get all the berries off really early, then this doesn't happen. This is about the most ripe that they get before they get pecked on and chewed like this. This must be a very tasty variety to them. So that's one reason that I'm really happy I'm introducing additional varieties. First, to spread the bird pressure out a little bit. But secondly, because if there's more Saskatoons, then there's more to share as well, and it might not be as intense. But the second reason is that there's a variety that I harvested a bunch of berries from across the river that I am 90% sure that's what these are. I put so many berries in right here and only 2 came up, so I need to learn more about Saskatoon propagation and what that's going to look like when interacting with my actual garden. And, just like propagation in general, because a lot of what I put in here didn't end up taking. I think these are the magnolia. And these were the earliest planted item here, and I didn't mark them because I'm a doofus. And I'm gonna have to go in and pull those up and repot them. Once again, the sea oats don't seem to have sprouted. That's frustrating. I am not too keen on how that's going. Might have to get seeds again, or I might just have to give up on that variety. That one little bit of green right there could be a bladder nut, possibly. We'll just wait and see. And then down in here, there's a ton of little tiny trees, and those are red buds. So those are my seeds. It turns out that digging up the root and bare root transplanting this milkweed is going fine. So I think it's a better placed item. Ouch, something bit me. A better placed item down on the cliff where its rampant habit will retain the soil. But on the other hand, I'm becoming much more comfortable with the, look, there's a cardinal in it right now, doing exactly what I just described from the Saskatoons. I am much more comfortable with the density of my garden than I used to be. I used to try and exert a lot more control than I do now. That said, the tick population is an issue, and I don't know how I'm actually going to reduce that problem in time. Hopefully I'll be able to without too much trouble, but I've already had hopefully my only tick bite for the year. We'll knock on my head because there's no wood immediately available. And it happens at home. I pulled one that wasn't attached off of me. I've learned to recognize the tickling feeling of them trying to bite you and been able to get most of them off of me before they bite. But last year I had pulled 5 or 6 ticks, most of them crawling, all except one off of me, and not a single one of those was from my garden. So it's regional. I'm not sure where all of them came from, but a couple of them came from a grassy lot that was adjacent to the food truck I like to get my lunches from when I work in the office, which, with current events and everything, I am 100% work from home right now. But, yeah, so there's a complication of, I always, every night, have to do a really thorough check for ticks. But it turns out that doesn't matter whether I'm working from home, or, even days that I didn't garden at all, I could end up finding a tick on me. So there are many, many places out in the world where there are ticks, and that is a problem. It's not unique to the dense vegetation here. I think some of them would be falling off the trees onto me and stuff like that. I don't know. It's very frustrating. Oh, I'm gonna potentially pull that grape out from the maypop's cage because I don't want it to overrun it. I may even just trim that piece of grape. Yeah, it's probably a good idea. But the pile of brush, now that I have the fire pit emptied, I can move this pile that I took off the hill over here up into the fire pit and get my stairwell back, because I miss being able to just walk through here. That was nice, and I miss it. I am noticing that the leaves of the hazelnut are getting really chewed on. Now, considering that planting natives is good for native wildlife, including all the bugs, I'm not going to consider that a bad thing. I'm going to consider that me feeding creatures that, wouldn't otherwise be fed, and hope that I just have enough vegetation on enough different hazelnuts that, it'll make up for it, and they won't get completely decimated or anything. So there's some bit of overview in addition to clay shale talk as far as different types of soil in my garden. And I hope that you're having a really good day. And however your weather is, hopefully you're able to enjoy it. Lilies are going to be any day now. Possibly even today. Some of these are a good 6 foot tall. They're called tree lilies. I've got 3 varieties, I think. It was supposed to be 6 varieties when I got the mixed pack, but most of them ended up being white, and I didn't end up bothering to complain about that. So that's just kind of how it is. I'm trying to pull these out before they go to seed, because we've talked about how much they'll just take over everything here. Oh, look, the stinging nettle is doing great there. They're in my shadow. And the elderberry's starting to set fruit, which is great because my fermented elderberry jam, I guess you could call it, is almost used up. I've been using it to help boost my immunity during this whole coronavirus thing. Anytime I feel a little bit crummy, just, augmenting a little bit. I'm not going to think it's going to heal anything if I'm totally sick. Still got to go to the doctor. Herbs are not a replacement for doctors, but they're treated as such in the U.S. because doctors are so much more expensive. Doctors overseas or doctors in any area that has healthcare provided don't fear herbal healthcare the same way that U.S. doctors do. And that's because they know that they're going to see ya. And it's not going to be something that you've been... Well, there's a paddle border down there. I don't know if you can tell because it's in the middle of the trees. It's not going to be something that, 4 years later you've been treating, I don't know, accidentally treating cancer with, some herbal thing, and it's too late by the time you actually get to a real doctor, so. But in the U.S. that happens a lot. So do take care of yourselves. Stay healthy. Be well. Fight tyranny. Kick some ass. And happy to have you along on my little permaculture journey. Feel free to like, share, subscribe. Thanks. Bye.